We shared one sleeping bag on the camping trip. Then she whispered, "Are you awake?" Lily's back was pressed to my chest because there was nowhere else for either of us to go. Rain hammered my tent, and each flash of lightning turned the nylon walls white. Her sleeping bag was soaked. Mine was built for one person. Somehow we had forced it to hold two. For 10 minutes, neither of us moved. Then Lily whispered, "Are you awake?" I stared into the dark. No. She took a nervous breath. "Good. Then you can't hear me say this." My heart started pounding. "I'm leaving for Seattle in 12 days, she said, "and I need to know whether I've spent 3 years imagining what happens every time you look at me." Before I could answer, a woman screamed beyond the trees. A boy's name tore through the storm. By sunrise, Lily and I would be searching a flooded ravine for a missing teenager. By the next night, she would know the secret I had kept for months. And before we left Yosemite, one choice could end us before we began. If you're wondering what you would risk for love, like the video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Would you confess before someone leaves? Or let them go? 6 hours earlier, Lily Morgan had thrown my paper map out the open passenger window. She did it at 35 miles an hour on Highway 120, just after we passed Groveland, while I was explaining for the third time that printed maps did not lose signal. "You said you knew the way," she told me, watching the map cartwheel into a ditch. "I did know the way. You missed the turn. I was testing you. You failed your own test." I glanced at her. She had one hiking boot braced against the dashboard, a braid over one shoulder, and the smug expression of someone who had just committed a misdemeanor against navigation. At 25, Lily could make irresponsibility look like a public service. At 29, I should have been immune to it. "You owe me $6, I said. "I'll pay you in emotional growth. That currency has never cleared." She smiled, but it vanished when her phone lit up in her lap. I saw only the first line of the notification before she turned the screen down. Cascade Urban Wildlife Initiative. I knew the name. I knew it better than she realized. "You okay?" I asked. Perfect. Lily's perfect meant she had built a wall and painted a window on it. I could have asked again. Instead, I turned up the radio and let an old Fleetwood Mac song fill the truck. That was the way Lily and I had survived 3 years of friendship. We noticed everything, joked about half of it, and pretended the rest belonged to someone braver. We had met at a fundraiser for the Sacramento Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, where she coordinated rescues and volunteer training. I had been there because my civil engineering firm had donated materials for a new raptor enclosure. Lily had mistaken me for a delivery driver and ordered me to carry 2 crates of frozen mice across a ballroom. I did it. She found out who I was 20 minutes later and laughed so hard she had to sit down. I should have been offended. Instead, I asked for her number. Not for a date. I told myself it was because the center needed help designing better drainage around the enclosures. 3 years later, I had repaired her kitchen sink, driven her to 2 family funerals, held a flashlight while she stitched a wounded owl, and learned exactly how she took her coffee. I had never kissed her. That fact had started to feel less like patience and more like cowardice. We reached Upper Pines Campground just after 3. Our friends had already claimed 2 neighboring sites beneath tall pines. Marcus was wrestling with a canopy. His fiancée, Jenna, sat in a camp chair drinking lemonade and offering no assistance. Priya and Theo were arguing over whether a bear could open a locked cooler. "It can if Noah packs it," Lily called as we got out. Marcus looked relieved. "Thank God. The married couple is here." "We are not married," Lily and I said at the same time. Jenna raised her cup. That was extremely convincing. The trip was supposed to be simple. 2 nights in Yosemite, 1 moderate hike, no work calls, no city traffic, and no wedding planning for Marcus and Jenna. I had volunteered to drive because I trusted my truck more than Theo's ancient van. Lily had volunteered to ride with me because, in her words, someone had to prevent me from organizing joy into labeled containers. She was not wrong. I had labeled the first aid kit. She had added a second label beneath mine that read, "For Noah's personality." While everyone unpacked, I watched Lily pitch her 1-person tent 15 yards from mine. The fabric was old, but serviceable, or so I thought. She moved with quick confidence, driving stakes into the damp ground, tugging the rainfly tight. "You sealed those seams?" I asked. She did not look up. "Were you born 70 years old, or did engineering school do that?" That is not an answer. It survived Mendocino. That was in July. So, rain behaves differently when it exists. She tossed a tent stake at me. I caught it. For 1 second, neither of us looked away. Then her phone rang. She stepped toward the trees before answering. Her voice dropped low enough that I could not hear the words, but I saw her shoulders tighten. She glanced at me once, then turned farther away. I knew who was calling. Leah Kim, director of the Cascade Initiative in Seattle, had been trying to hire Lily for a year-long program that paired wildlife response teams with city emergency departments. It was exactly the kind of job Lily talked about when she forgot to protect herself. Bigger, harder, useful in a way that frightened her. 4 months earlier, I had sent Leah a recommendation letter without telling Lily. At the time, it had felt like the least selfish thing I had ever done. Standing in Yosemite, watching Lily hide the call from me, it felt different. She returned 2 minutes later wearing a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Spam?" I asked. Something like that. I nodded as if I believed her. She nodded as if she believed me. By 5, the sky had gone the color of wet slate. We hiked the lower trail toward Mirror Lake anyway, because Theo insisted his weather app showed only a 30% chance of rain. "It also says you've walked 12,000 steps, Priya told him. "You've been in the car all day. The app respects emotional distance." Lily walked beside me, close enough that our shoulders brushed when the trail narrowed. She pointed out mule deer tracks, a woodpecker cavity, fresh claw marks on a fallen log. I pointed out where runoff had undercut the edge of the trail. "Romance is alive," she said. "I show you a bear mark, and you show me soil failure. I'm trying to keep you from becoming soil failure. You worry too much. You don't worry enough. That's why we work." The words landed between us more heavily than she seemed to intend. She looked ahead. I pretended to examine the slope. A few minutes later, she stopped near the water and pulled out her camera. The lake was low, reflecting granite and darkening clouds. Lily crouched to photograph a pair of ducks near the reeds. "You still entering the conservation photo contest?" I asked. "Maybe." "You should." "You always say that?" "Because you always pretend not to hear it." She lowered the camera. "Do you ever get tired of encouraging people toward things that take them away from you?" I felt the question like a change in air pressure. Before I could answer, thunder rolled over the valley. Marcus called for everyone to head back. The first drops hit before we reached the campground. By the time we ran the last quarter mile, rain was coming down in sheets. We scattered for tents and tarps, laughing while we tried to save chairs, food, and Jenna's carefully packed box of wedding magazines. Lily disappeared into her tent. I was securing my rainfly when I heard her swear. That was unusual enough to make me turn. She crawled back out on her hands and knees, hair already wet, holding one side of her sleeping bag. Water poured from it like a ruptured aquarium. Her tent floor had become a shallow pool. I stared at the collapsed seam near the corner. She stared at me. "Don't say it," she warned. "I wasn't going to. You were going to say rain behaves differently when it exists. I would never repeat myself during a crisis." Lightning flashed. A crack of thunder followed close enough to shake the canopy. Jenna opened her tent flap. "Our floor is dry, but we only have a double bag, and Marcus snores like heavy machinery." "Not helping," Marcus called. Priya and Theo's tent was barely large enough for the two of them. The campground was full, the roads were already slick, and the temperature was dropping fast. Lily hugged her arms around herself. Her jacket was wet through. I unzipped my tent. "You can use my bag," I said. "What will you use?" I looked at the narrow green sleeping bag spread across my pad. She followed my gaze. "No. It's rated for 20 degrees. It's rated for one person. I've read the label. It doesn't ask for identification." Noah. "You're shivering. I can sit in the truck. During a lightning storm under trees, with the road possibly flooding, I can sleep in the restroom." "Great. I'll explain to the ranger that our wildlife professional died of hypothermia because she found sharing nylon with me emotionally complicated." Her jaw tightened. For once, she had no joke ready. Another gust drove rain sideways beneath the canopy. "Fine," she said. "But if you tell anyone, I'll deny it." "Tell anyone what?" "That I trusted your judgment." We moved her dry clothes and small bag into my tent. She changed behind a hanging emergency blanket while I sat outside under the vestibule, pretending not to notice how aware I was of every rustle. When she told me it was safe, I changed into dry sweatpants and a thermal shirt. Then we faced the sleeping bag. It looked smaller than it had 10 minutes earlier. "You first," I said. "Why?" "So you can't accuse me of taking the good side. There is no good side. There is a zipper and regret." She slid in, lying rigidly along the far edge. I followed, zipped us up, and immediately understood that physics had been invited to humiliate me personally. My arm had nowhere to go except under her neck or across her waist. I chose the ground above her head and lost feeling in my shoulder within 2 minutes. Lily stared at the tent roof. "This is fine," she said. "Completely. I can't feel my left foot." "That proves you're warm." "No, it proves your knee is on it." I shifted. She shifted. The sleeping bag twisted, forcing her back against my chest. Neither of us spoke. Outside, rain struck the tent in hard, relentless waves. Inside, I could feel Lily breathing. I could smell cedar soap in her damp hair. Every instinct I had spent 3 years controlling became impossible to ignore. 10 minutes passed. Then she whispered, "Are you awake?" I knew the safe answer. I also knew I had used safe answers until they had become their own kind of lie. "No," I said. She let out a breath. "Good. Then you can't hear me say this." I waited. "I'm leaving for Seattle in 12 days. The storm seemed to move farther away for one impossible second. All I could hear was the blood in my ears. "For how long?" "A year. Maybe longer if the pilot program becomes permanent. You accepted?" "Yesterday." Her voice was steady, but the hand resting near her chin had curled into a fist. I should have congratulated her. I had written 3 pages explaining why she was the best person for the position. I had told Leah that Lily could walk into chaos and find the one living thing everyone else had overlooked. I had meant every word. Instead, I asked, "Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have said it was a great opportunity." "It is." "Exactly." She shifted enough to look back at me. In the dim light, her eyes reflected a narrow flash of lightning. I didn't want your professional opinion, Noah. What did you want? She was silent so long I thought she would turn away. Then she said, I need to know whether I've spent 3 years imagining what happens every time you look at me. My throat closed. I had pictured that question in 100 safer places. A quiet kitchen, her porch, my truck after one of our late dinners. In every version, I answered perfectly. In the real moment, a woman screamed. Max! The name came from the neighboring loop, raw with panic. A car door slammed. Someone shouted for a flashlight. Lily and I moved at once. We fought our way out of the sleeping bag, pulled on jackets, and ran into the rain. At the next campsite, a woman in a red poncho was clutching a leash with no dog attached. Her husband stood near an empty 2-person tent, calling their son's name into the trees. He went after Pepper, the woman said. The dog got loose. Max said he'd be right back. That was 20 minutes ago. How old? I asked. 14. A ranger's truck arrived, lights flashing through the rain. Ranger Alvarez stepped out, took control quickly, and asked everyone to stay clear while she gathered details. The creek beyond the campground had risen. One trail crossed a drainage that could turn dangerous without warning. I told her I volunteered with Sacramento County Search and Rescue. Lily showed her wilderness first aid certification. Alvarez studied us, then handed us reflective vests. You stay inside the campground boundary, she said. Check bathrooms, bear boxes, vehicles, and the first 100 yards of the paved trail. No one enters the drainage until my team assesses it. We split up. For 40 minutes, Lily and I searched through sheets of rain. We checked under picnic tables and behind storage sheds. We called Max's name until our voices went rough. At the edge of the paved trail, Lily found a small flashlight lying in mud. The mother identified it immediately. Pepper, a black and white cattle dog, came running out of the trees 5 minutes later, soaked and shaking. Max did not. The dog kept pulling toward the eastern drainage. Alvarez's face changed when she saw that. The crossing's underwater, she told us. We wait for first light. Max's mother began to cry. Her husband wrapped both arms around her, but she kept staring at the dog as if it might explain why it had returned alone. I wanted to go after him. Every muscle in my body was prepared to ignore the ranger and enter the dark. Lily caught my sleeve. Noah. He's been out there almost an hour, and if you get swept downstream, they search for 2 people. You don't know he crossed. Neither do you. Her grip tightened. That's why we do this right. I looked at her. Rain ran down her face. She was scared, but she was not uncertain. I stepped back. We returned to my tent after midnight. Ranger Alvarez had promised to wake us at 5 if she needed our help. Marcus gave Lily a dry fleece. Jenna found an extra blanket. No one made a joke about the sleeping bag. Inside the tent, Lily and I climbed back into it because the temperature had fallen into the 30s, and neither of us had a better option. This time, the closeness felt different. Not less intense, just smaller beside the image of a 14-year-old alone in the storm. I lay on my back. Lily rested on her side, facing me. You were going to go, she said. Yes, even after the ranger told you not to. Yes. Why? I watched rainwater bead along the seam above us. My brother was 17 when he disappeared during a storm near Tahoe, I said. Lily knew Daniel had died. She did not know the details. I almost never gave them to anyone. He and 2 friends tried to cross a creek during spring runoff. The others made it. He didn't. Search teams waited until daylight because the current was too dangerous. They were right to wait. I swallowed. Knowing that has never made waiting easier. Lily's expression softened. You were 19? Yeah, you've been punishing yourself for listening to the rescuers? I've been trying to become the person who could have brought him back. She reached between us and placed her hand over mine. The contact was simple. It undid me more than the tight sleeping bag had. You don't have to save everyone to prove you loved him, she said. I turned my palm under hers and held on. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then I said, I didn't imagine it. Her eyes searched mine. What? What happens when I look at you? Her breath caught. I wanted to tell her everything. That I had loved her through frozen mice and funerals, through coffee at 6 a.m. and texts at midnight, through every sarcastic insult she used to hide a kindness. I wanted to tell her I had been afraid that naming it would give it an ending, but before I could, her phone vibrated inside her backpack. She closed her eyes. Seattle? I asked. Probably. Take it. It's midnight. Then don't. She pulled her hand from mine. You always do that. Do what? Give me both doors and stand in the hallway like you don't care which one I choose. That isn't fair. No, it's accurate. She turned away, and I felt the space between us even though there was none. At 5:15, Ranger Alvarez called through the tent wall. We found tracks, she said. I could use both of you. Dawn came gray and cold. The rain had weakened, but water rushed through every low place in the campground. A section of road near the entrance had washed out, trapping most vehicles until crews could inspect it. Alvarez divided the searchers into teams. She paired Lily and me with a ranger named Cole and Pepper, who strained at the leash toward the eastern trail. We followed the dog past the paved path and into wet forest. Mud sucked at our boots. Fallen branches forced us around the usual route. The drainage that had been knee-deep the previous afternoon was now a violent brown channel. Max's footprints ended near the flooded crossing. Cole swore under his breath. On the far bank, Lily pointed to a streak of red caught on manzanita. His mother said he wore a red rain shell. Cole radioed the find. The nearest safe crossing was half a mile upstream, where a fallen cedar formed a natural bridge above a narrower section. I'll go first, I said. Lily rolled her eyes. Because masculinity improves balance? Because I'm heavier and can test the trunk? That was almost a good reason. The bark was slick. I crossed slowly, clipped to a safety line Cole had rigged. Lily followed with Pepper. Halfway across, the dog lunged at a scent. Lily's boot slipped. Her body dropped sideways. The line caught her, but her hip struck the trunk. I grabbed the back of her harness and hauled her upright. For one terrible second, she clung to me above the water. I've got you, I said. I know. She did not sound frightened. She sounded angry. Once we reached the far bank, she pulled free. You can stop crushing my harness now. You almost fell. And the line worked. You hit the tree. I have a bruise, not a funeral. Cole pretended to study the map. I lowered my voice. I'm allowed to be scared when you nearly fall into floodwater. You're allowed to be scared. You're not allowed to turn fear into an order. The words struck deeper than the moment deserved, which meant they were not only about the moment. Pepper barked and pulled uphill. We followed. The dog led us through a stand of young pines to a granite outcrop above the drainage. At first I saw only brush and wet stone. Then Lily dropped to one knee. Max, she called. My name is Lily. Pepper's here. A weak voice answered from beneath the rock. We found him wedged in a shallow hollow, where the granite leaned over the slope. His ankle was badly swollen. His lips had gone pale. He had wrapped himself in a silver emergency blanket, but one side had torn. Pepper crawled onto his chest, whining. Max started crying. Lily slid into the hollow beside him. Her voice became calm and firm, the way it did with frightened volunteers and injured animals. "You did the right thing staying put," she told him. "You kept yourself out of the water, and you used your blanket. That was smart. I lost my shoe. We'll start a memorial fund." He laughed once, then winced. While she checked his circulation and mental state, Cole called for the litter team. I insulated Max with my jacket and helped splint his ankle. The evacuation took nearly 2 hours because the slope had become unstable. At one point, while we waited for more ropes, Max looked from Lily to me. "Are you two married?" "No," we said together. He frowned. "You sound married." Lily adjusted the blanket under his shoulders. "He hasn't learned how to apologize correctly." "I apologized on the log. You announced that you had me. I did have you. That is not an apology." Max smiled despite himself. "My parents do this too." I looked at Lily. A strand of wet hair was stuck to her cheek. There was mud across her jaw and a bruise forming near her temple from the branch she had ducked too late. She looked exhausted and beautiful, and completely beyond anything I could control. That should have frightened me. Instead, for the first time, it made the truth feel simple. I loved her. We brought Max back to the campground just before noon. His mother ran beside the litter until the medics made her stop. When they finally let her kneel beside him, she pressed her forehead to his and sobbed without sound. His father held Pepper against his chest with one arm and gripped my shoulder with the other. "Thank you," he said. I looked at Lily. She was already stepping away from the reunion, giving the family space. That was how she moved through the world. She would fight to reach someone, then disappear before gratitude could make the moment about her. I followed her behind the ranger station. "You found him," I said. "We found him. You saw the fabric. You crossed the log first. You were right about waiting." That made her look at me. "I'm sorry," I said, "for trying to turn fear into an order." Her shoulders lowered slightly. That was almost a good apology. "Almost? You still sound surprised I was right. I'm surprised anyone is ever right when disagreeing with me." A smile touched her mouth, but before it could settle, Ranger Alvarez came around the corner holding Lily's phone. "This kept ringing in the supply tent," she said. "Someone named Leia. She said it was urgent." Lily took the phone. The screen displayed 3 missed calls and an email notification. I saw my own name in the preview. Recommendation from Noah Parker attached. Lily saw it, too. The color left her face. Alvarez sensed the change and excused herself. Lily opened the email. I watched her scroll. The recommendation letter I had written 4 months earlier filled the screen. She read in silence. Then she looked up at me. "You did this?" I could have lied for half a second. The reflex appeared and died. "Yes." "You sent my name to Cascade?" "Yes." "Without asking me?" "You told Jenna you wanted the position. I told Jenna I was curious about it. You said you didn't think they'd consider you because you hadn't managed a citywide program. So you decided to manage my life instead?" "That isn't what I did." "You wrote them a 3-page letter, Noah." She held up the phone. "You gave them my project history, my certifications, even the flood response plan I wrote for the rehab center. Because it was brilliant. That is not the point." "Then tell me the point. The point is that you opened a door behind my back, and then stood there smiling while I walked through it. Her voice had not risen, but every word cut cleanly. I thought I was helping. You thought you knew what was best. I knew you were qualified. You did not know what it would cost me. The campground noise seemed to recede. I could hear water dripping from the station roof. What does it cost? I asked. She laughed once, without humor. You. I could not move. Lily looked away, blinking hard. I didn't accept because Seattle is some perfect dream. I accepted because I heard you talking to your father after your birthday dinner. My mind went back to that night. I had been in the kitchen, arguing with Dad about the promotion my firm had offered me in Phoenix. He had asked whether there was anyone in Sacramento worth staying for. I had said, "Nothing is keeping me here, except work." I had said it because Lily was in the next room, and admitting the truth to my father would have made it real. You heard that? Every word. I didn't mean... I know what you said. I was trying to get him off my back, and I was trying to stop waiting for a man who kept proving I wasn't part of his plans. I stepped closer. You are part of every plan. Then why am I always the last person to know? Her question left nowhere to hide. My phone rang. I almost ignored it. Then I saw my boss's name and remembered the deadline I had avoided all weekend. Lily glanced at the screen. Take it. No. Give yourself both doors, Noah. Her voice broke on my name. Stand in the hallway. She walked away. I answered because cowardice often disguises itself as responsibility. My boss, Rachel Chen, did not waste time. The Phoenix client needs an answer by 5, she said. If you take the lead, relocation begins next month. If you pass, I offer it to Grant. I watched Lily cross the campground toward Jenna's tent. I need until 5, I said. You've had 3 weeks. I know. Rachel softened. Noah, you built half the proposal, but don't take the job because you think movement is the same thing as progress. After we hung up, Marcus found me standing beside a stack of wet firewood. You look terrible, he said. Thank you. Jenna told me about Seattle. Of course she did. She also told me Lily knows about your letter. I sat on the edge of a picnic table. I tried to help her. Marcus sat beside me. You did help her. You also took away her chance to decide whether she wanted your help. I didn't force her to accept. No. You just made sure she had an exit while refusing to tell her you wanted her to stay. I stared at the mud between my boots. Did she tell you about Phoenix? He asked. She knows now. Are you taking it? Before that weekend, I had planned to. Phoenix was a promotion, a larger team, and a salary that would make my father proud. It was also 2 years of flood control work I respected but no longer wanted. I had convinced myself that leaving Sacramento would prove I was not trapped by memory. Now it looked like another hallway. I don't know, I said. Marcus shook his head. That answer is getting expensive. The road reopened to one-way traffic at 4:30. Lily packed before anyone else. Her tent was ruined, so she shoved the wet fabric into a trash bag and strapped it to the roof of Priya's car. I found her near the bear box. Can we talk? We've talked. Not honestly. That has mostly been your decision. I deserved that. I love you, I said. The words came out without preparation. No perfect kitchen. No quiet porch. Just wet gravel, a dented bear box, and Lily holding a bag of trail mix between us. Her face changed. For 1 second, hope moved across it so openly that I nearly reached for her. Then she closed her eyes. You don't get to say that because I'm leaving. I'm saying it because it's true. It was true yesterday. Yes. And last month? Yes. And when you sent that letter? Yes. She set the trail mix down with careful hands. Then love is not the part you have trouble with. Choice is, I choose you. Do you? She looked at me. Are you turning down Phoenix? I don't know yet. A sad smile appeared. There it is. I need to think about my career. You should. So should I. That's what adults do. But I will not build my future around a confession you made only when the car was packed. I'm not asking you to give up Seattle. What are you asking? I opened my mouth. Nothing honest arrived quickly enough. Lily nodded as if I had answered. I love you too, she said. The world tilted. She picked up the trail mix. But I need more than being the person you love in private. I need to be the person you make plans with out loud. Then she walked to Priya's car. I did not chase her. That was the part I hated most when I remembered it later. Not that I failed to stop her. She had every right to leave. I hated that some frightened part of me felt relieved when the decision passed out of my hands. At 4:58, I called Rachel. I'm turning down Phoenix, I said. Because of Lily? Because I don't want Phoenix. I wanted the promotion because it was an answer no one could question. What do you want? For once, I made myself say it before fear edited the sentence. I want to build the Pacific Resilience Division we discussed last year. Wildfire evacuation routes, flood-resistant wildlife crossings, emergency shelter systems. Sacramento and Seattle both need it. Rachel was quiet. That is not a job we currently have, she said. Then let me make it one. You have a proposal? I will by Monday. It's Saturday. I own a laptop. She sighed. Send me 10 pages. If the partners agree there's a market, you can pitch it. It was not a promise. It was the first decision I had made in years that felt like my own. Back in Sacramento, I spent 9 days building the proposal. I met with county emergency managers, wildlife agencies, and 2 non-profit directors. I asked Lily's Center for data, but did not contact Lily directly. She had asked for plans, not panic. I also started seeing the grief counselor my search and rescue coordinator had recommended after Daniel died. On the first day, I told her I had built a life around preventing every possible loss. She asked whether it had worked. I laughed for the first time in the room. The partners approved a 6-month pilot. Rachel agreed I could base the first project in Seattle if I secured the city contract. I would travel back to Sacramento twice a month and lead a small team remotely. It was not a romantic sacrifice. It was work I wanted, in a place where Lily happened to be. That distinction mattered. She flew to Seattle on Thursday morning. I did not go to the airport. Instead, I took the Friday night flight after hers. On Saturday, I stood outside the Cascade Initiative's temporary field office, holding 2 coffees and a folder I had no intention of using as proof that she owed me anything. Lily came through the gate wearing a green staff jacket. She stopped when she saw me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she walked closer. What are you doing here? Asking a question before making a plan for both of us. Her mouth twitched despite herself. That is new. I'm trying to grow quickly. I handed her the coffee. She took it. I turned down Phoenix, I said. Not because you left, because I didn't want it. I proposed a resilience division instead. If the Seattle contract comes through, I'll be here most weeks for 6 months. Her eyes dropped to the folder. You made a whole presentation? For work? Not for you. That may be the least romantic sentence anyone has ever said while flying to another state. I'm not finished. She waited. I don't want you to come back to Sacramento for me. I don't want you to change this job, shorten it, or make it smaller so I can feel safe. I want to try us while we both do the work we chose. Her fingers tightened around the cup. And if your contract doesn't happen, I fly up on weekends. You fly down when you can. We get tired. We argue. We stop pretending inconvenience means impossibility. And if it's hard, it will be. And if I leave again someday, I took a breath. Then I'll be sad, I may be furious, but I won't spend the time before that acting like you're already gone." Lily looked away toward the line of cedar trees beyond the parking lot. When she turned back, her eyes were wet. "You still haven't asked your question." I stepped closer, leaving enough room for her to step away. "Will you go on a first date with me tonight?" She laughed through the tears. "After 3 years? I'm slow. You're impossible. Is that a no?" She set down her coffee, caught the front of my jacket, and kissed me. It was not careful. It was not uncertain. It was 3 years of jokes, unfinished sentences, airport roads not taken, and one storm-dark tent finally becoming something neither of us had to imagine. When she pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine. "That's a yes," she said. The Seattle contract came through 2 months later. Lily excelled at Cascade. I built the new division one project at a time. We learned that love did not erase logistics. It gave us a reason to solve them together. 14 months after Yosemite, Marcus and Jenna invited the entire group back to the same campground for their first anniversary. Max and his parents came for dinner. His ankle had healed, and Pepper had gained enough weight to steal an entire steak from Theo's plate. That night, rain began tapping softly against the tent. Lily looked at the wide, 2-person sleeping bag I had bought and raised an eyebrow. Overcompensating? Engineering correction. We climbed inside. There was room to move, room to breathe, room to choose closeness instead of being forced into it. After the campground went quiet, I reached into the pocket beside me and closed my hand around a small ring box. Lily's back was against my chest. I whispered, "Are you awake?" "No," she said. "Good. Then you can't hear me say this." She turned in my arms, already smiling. I opened the box. "I don't want to ask you to stay," I said. "I want to ask you to keep choosing where we go next, with me." Her smile broke into tears. "Yes," she whispered. "I'm awake. And yes." Outside, the rain kept falling, but nothing leaked. Nothing had to trap us together. We stayed because we had finally learned the difference between holding on and making room. Some love stories begin with perfect timing. Ours began when the weather failed, the road washed out, and every safe answer stopped working. If you believe love needs honest choices more than perfect circumstances, share this story, subscribe, and tell me, what truth would you finally say in the dark?